Hello, Kathy. How you going?
Good. How are you, Bede?
Yeah, going good.
Okay.
I was just wondering. I was thinking of something the other day. Is that what's interesting about Freud and what's interesting about the Course is the whole question of motivation. What moves us? See, what actually moves us? Because unless what moves us undergoes a change, we don't change.
Right.
We don't change. And the thing of when we look at the psychodynamics of the course is that we're told that there's two contrasting things that will move us. There's there's the desire to have my own being separate and distinct and special. Do you know what I mean? So there's something special about me. But in order to have that specialness, I have to be separate and apart from God because as far as God goes, there's only love. There's no special. There's no some beautiful person standing out from others, for example.
Yeah.
Whether that's standing out as positive, I'm such a magnificent, brilliant person, or I've got suffering that other people haven't got. That the compulsion to be special, the desire to preserve a sense of identity separate and apart from God. So that that when we are being the will to be separate from God, and it's the highest point. It's from that everything flows from the will, from the love of self. So when we say love, wanting, will, it's the same. But there's also another will, and that is because the presence of love, we're lost in the dream of human life, but we have this memory of the presence of love. And this gives us a will to want to go home.
Mm.
Or once we discover what home is, to abide in being at home. So they're the two things, the only two things that can move us. But for some reason, uh, it's a question of, well, where's the location of the solution? Where is the location of the solution to our life? We think that the solution is reading books, having relationships, finding happiness, all of this stuff. We think this, but what we're taught in the course is that the starting point of the course is right here, right now, as I am. Yes, but what if that's misery? Precisely. That's where we start. Right here, right now. And where's the solution? Right here, right now, as we are, because it's called a journey without distance. So the big question is, well, why is it that we keep away from ourselves simply as we are? Why is it so intolerable to remain just simply miserable with the realization I am misery itself? What's the problem with that? Well, the course explains that. So we have the understanding that we have what we call the belief in sin, guilt, and fear. We believe because we want to be separate and apart from God. We need three sustaining beliefs to make sure that that comes off. We need to know that, yes, I am separate and apart from God. But what happens there is with that thought, I am separate and apart from God, it's true. It will maintain my life and being as separate and apart from God. But the direct consequence is loneliness and emptiness. And most of us, when this loneliness and emptiness comes evident, we go, ooh, and we run away from it. Of course we do, because it's too miserable. And then we have the belief that not only have I done a bad thing, I am a bad thing, self-hatred. And so that I am guilty, that the very nature of me is guilt. And that manifests as all these different forms of self-hatred. You know what I mean? But it's the feeling I hate being what I'm like. There's no peace being myself. Being me is just being miserable. I've got to be a nicer self. I've got to be a holier self. I've got to be a happier self. So, so not only do we have loneliness and emptiness, we have extreme self-hatred, which of course is so heavy and burdensome that we compulsively have to hate other people to try and relieve the burden. So when we're looking at ourselves attacking other people and criticizing other people and stuff, we are looking at the self-hatred we have given form in terms of projection, right?
Right. Our lives here reflect the thought system of sin, guilt, and fear, which arose because we believe we attacked God. And so that's going to play itself out in our lives over and over. We made other people to fail us so we could blame them.
Right. And then lastly, like what you mentioned about fear, is guilt demands punishment. That's a principle. Now, one of the things is this: we're so afraid to get near the guilt, because to get near the guilt, to arrive near the guilt is to be destroyed. And that's why, when someone gets up, when someone's hurt us by saying something scathing and we're really disturbed, we're desperately trying to change them to get rid of the feeling of disturbance here.
Right, right.
But that disturbance is a revelation of our actual existential condition in relation to God, not our ontological condition. Our ontological condition, we've never been separate apart from God. But our
Right.
existential condition that first has to be acknowledged is that right where I am, centered on me, is where the problem is. It has nothing to do with my mind, my emotions, other people, the world. It is centered on me. I am being the very misery, and I'm bubbling with loneliness, emptiness, self-hatred, and fear. Now, I have to have a world, because if I have a world and I'm riveted, my attention rivets on the world, that anesthetizes and hides me from the fact that I am being the very misery. It protects me, because now there's this compulsion to be special in the world. I'm a nice person. I'm this. I'm not like that person there. They're so dishonest, right? So this compulsion to attack and to find judgment, to find fault with some object away from us, is what characterize human life, because of the absolute fear. And we often wonder, why is it we're so obsessed about external things? People say, "Oh, you've got to let go. You've got to let go." Well, okay, but if I've got a relationship that's protecting me from this incredible pain, I'm not going to want to let go, because this special relationship covers up the misery, and it becomes really important. Really important. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. There is a line in the course about the idea that whenever we think we've triumphed, whenever our specialness needs have been met by someone else, it reinforces the self we believe we are, and the rejoicing is really on the carcass of God. We are rejoicing the triumph over God. I didn't need God. I found what I needed here in the dream. I've got this special person who's giving me special love. So my perceived need is met on the surface, but beneath that need is to be the self I made. So what I really want is to continue to feel safe in my specialness. I'm a special person, and I use the other people around me to prove that to myself.
Right, and it's a whole defense against this guilt centered on me.
Yes, yes. So whether it seems to be, and I think that kind of speaks to gathering our enemies and our allies. We can, when two people can see guilt in the same place, it's a match made in heaven. you know.
Right. So this compulsion to see others as defective, as not quite good enough, as the delight in seeing their evil and their badness.
Yeah.
Not saying that people don't do evil and bad things, but when I'm using what my senses are showing me to offload this burden of guilt, so that now I'm seeing the fault and the wrongness in an object other than me.
Yeah.
That's the compulsion. So of special love and special hate. So we might hate politicians. So we really enjoy rubbishing and do you know what I mean? Not saying the politicians are doing good, but the fact that I'm using the fact of a politician and their actions so that I can relieve myself of this tremendous burden of guilt, so that even my attractiveness of the world is an expression of my guilt, and my aversion to the world, my so-called aversion and attacking, is also uh, the dealing with guilt. So my whole life
Yeah.
becomes a resistance
Mhm.
getting near the problem. Keep it, my fingers are pointing out. I'm riveted out there. And when I'm riveted out there, it means that I'm I'm not getting near where the problem actually lies. Could you
Right.
speak
We
to
feel
that?
safe. Yes, we
Yeah.
feel safe under that circumstance. So we actually need people to treat us unfairly. We need to see unfairness in the world. We need to see the culprits so that we can see our guilt, see the guilt that we don't want to look at within ourselves projected onto someone else. So denial always causes projection, and we will see outside of us what we don't want to see inside of us. So we don't want to see that guilt, and so we need to see bad things happening in the world. We need to see people we can call the guilty one. And that's how we spend all of our lives, projecting out that guilt that we don't want to see within us. If we could see within us, we'd see that it was all made up. We don't want
Right
to do
now,
that.
right now that brings us to the point. So, in order for us to actually see the misery centered on us, we have to stop having our attention riveted on that. We've got to bring our attention back, which is the second step of forgiveness. Because if if we see our happiness and our misery being caused by external things, we think that we're upset or made happy for the reason that what's that saying? We're never upset for the
Never.
reason we think.
Yeah.
So so now with that understanding, which is very interesting, the moment. So here I am. I've been exposing my mind to the course, which is exposing my mind to Jesus's mind, and then so I suddenly see myself angry, and then suddenly this what opens up in me is a cognition that says maybe you're not upset for the reason you think. Now that's the practical presence of Jesus opening up in me as wisdom. It's because this wisdom is not just simply wisdom, it's the invitation to come back home, to live a different kind of life. And
Yeah.
so when I am freed from the when I'm freed from the I don't know why that hand is there. I don't know.
Yeah. Mm.
When I'm freed from the blame, so I'm not. The first step in the forgiveness is that I've got to take totally my attention, be released from having my attention fixated on something external, whether that's an external, whether it's an emotion that I think is causing me the problem, or whether I think it's a person, or whether I think it's external circumstances or a condition of my body.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Without that, we're in trouble. So that the first step of forgiveness will bring us back. But now, what's interesting here is the second step, because if if I'm released from guilt and blaming, then I'm thrown back on the misery. Now, a statement once changed my life when it was from my Vedanta teacher in India. He says that people and things never hurt you; they're only instrumental in revealing a misery and pain that's already there.
Mm. That's
So,
good.
so here we are. We've taken our attention off. We're upset and we're disturbed. But now we go, okay, we're now going, I'm not disturbed. It's not like I'm suffering because of this external thing. It's just now I'm suffering. Great beginning. Now I'm with myself as I am. Now, what's interesting here, the Course has a very interesting thing, is that it says that if I resist, you see, so if I'm in suffering and I start to analyze and I start to try and explain it and I try and get rid of it, I'm making the suffering that's centered on me real.
Yeah.
And if I'm making it real, uh, I'm not resolving it because it's like a tiger in a dream. The more you fight it, the stronger it gets. And so the Course has got this very interesting talk about that love does not oppose. And it also says that of the value of defenselessness, because if you don't defend, you're demonstrating that it can't hurt you. Now, this is a very interesting thing. I found this very helpful. So here I am, I'm caught in the misery. But it's like what you said, right-mindedness is being in the wrong mind. So here I am, being miserable, but looking at this very misery with Jesus.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about remaining with ourselves as we are in all honesty, defenselessly,
Yes.
defenselessly, and not rushing to get rid of the misery. Oh no, I'm a child of God, everything's fine.
Right. And when you're looking with Jesus without judgment in that moment, the investment is no longer in what the body does. The body could do anything. But when
And
you're looking
what you
without
mean by the
judgment,
body, and what you mean by the body is the psychophysical entity we take to be ourselves.
yes. So if you're really looking without judgment, I just wanted to make the point that you could go see a doctor. You could do things in the world that
Yeah,
seem to alleviate the suffering, but within yourself, you are standing with the truth in you, with Jesus, and looking on it without judgment.
right. And we're talking about
Transcending it,
and
transcending it.
we're talking about the misery. So
Yes.
so remaining with the misery, and the course has got this beautiful saying that in the face of this misery, we arrive at a place where we're doing nothing. We simply look, wait, and judge not. Now it's very interesting. If I judge my misery, going, oh, that's my depression, I'm
Yes.
pushing it away.
Right.
But when I'm being my misery, but I'm looking at that misery with Jesus, there's no conflict. I am not fighting myself. I'm
Yeah.
being entirely defenseless. And then I can look with Jesus, I can go, okay, there is this tremendous feeling of misery that there's a global feeling that's all over me.
Hmm.
What's the meaning of this global feeling? Now, it's very tempting to take the misery itself as the problem. The misery is making me miserable.
Yeah.
But through the eyes of Jesus, we're told, and we can ponder this. Here I'm caught in this misery, and I go, okay, uh, the experience is not the problem. This experience would not exist, this misery would not exist unless I had the idea that I'm separate and apart from God and believe it and
Right.
wanting to believe it. So if I'm seeing the problem not as the experience. My attention is shifted off. Not only is it shifted off the experience of the world, it's now shifted off the experience of the pain and suffering, and has now raised the problem to a problem of cognition, to a problem of belief, to the idea that I'm separate and apart from God, I'm guilty and I'm fearful. The ideas. And
Yeah.
now I can see, the problem is not the experience of misery, the depression, the loneliness, the emptiness, the fear. The problem is that I am not seeing the truth. And now I can really pray. I can say, please fill my mind with the wisdom, your wisdom, so that I can see that I've never been separate and apart from God, that I'm always remained as God made me, which will deal with the guilt, and that I'm indestructible in heaven. Right? Now,
Yeah.
now, now it's just a very interesting process. I'm not blaming the world. I'm not blaming the experience of misery, emptiness, loneliness, self-hatred, or fear. I'm now seeing that the problem is that I am not seeing because I believe in sin, guilt, and fear, and I want to believe in sin, guilt, and fear because I want to preserve my own being. But I go, for goodness sake, this isn't working. So please help me. Now, in the prayer of asking, I'm now, instead of being the will towards being separate and apart from God, I'm now being the will to want to go home. Could you
Mhm.
speak to that, please?
Yes, all pain in any form comes from a willingness to be separate, just like you said. And so, in that recognition, we can ask for meaningful help. And even if it's to say, I'm not, I'm willing to be separate. I'm not ready. I don't want you, Jesus, but help me look on it. So the important thing is to invite the truth and invite Jesus and the Holy Spirit to look at what you're doing. But that is the opening, the understanding that it's the will to separation. That's the first part of the undoing of that will.
Right. So when you ask for help, there's a shift in the will. There's now the you're now being governed by a different will because now you want, which is will. I want something different. And so
Yeah,
what's moving me now, I've now I'm now being moved by something different. And because of that, and I want to go home. And it's said to us, if all we need is this little simple willingness to just want to go home, that's all we can contribute. And then the third step of forgiveness is that we understand that when we do nothing, we simply wait, look, and judge not. In that passivity, because we're not fighting, what happens is we start to find a peace starts to open up because we're not fighting and struggling. So we're not stirring the pot. We find that our minds become unpreoccupied with suffering. They become clear and aware. But we find at rest in our heart. That's the most interesting thing. We find ourselves being at rest with ourselves. We find ourselves, instead of self-hating, we now find ourselves at home with ourselves because we're at home in God. Now,
right. When we stop defending the self we made.
right, because the self we made at this moment isn't there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is that people tend to think that there's all these different problems. I've got problems with depression, anxiety. I've got problems with interpersonal conflicts. I've got problem. But there's only one problem. When my mind is filled with the wisdom of Jesus and when my heart is filled with the love of Jesus, I am I'm able to be myself and learn and discover what being myself means. And to be myself is to be free, and to be free is to be at home in God. And because I've got none of my brothers, I'm no longer attacking anybody. Do you know what I mean? I'm actually in the state of forgiveness. I'm not attacking myself. I'm not attacking the world, and I'm not attacking anyone. And then that is the process. Now, when I am being, now what this is really interesting. When I'm being at home with myself, because I'm not miserable, the world is no longer important as a defense against that. And so Wapnick says, you arrive at a place where the world isn't good, the world isn't bad, it's nothing. It has no importance. Within the process of forgiveness, we are released, not because I'm giving it up, I'm letting go. It's the understanding obtaining in you, and then you let go because it's no longer important. Whereas when the world is a defense against guilt, positive or negative, there's no possibility of letting go. It's only when I experience and appreciate what it means to be at home in God. In one sense, I've let go. It's true, I've let go, but it's not me who's let go. It's the understanding that 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 the world is nothing in the sense of it has no importance right now. It's not defending me. It's not protecting me against my misery. That it's just relinquished because it has no importance. That Wapnick says it means nothing. Can you comment? Can you comment on his thing? It's not good. It's not bad. It's nothing.
Yes, when we're invested in the world, it's
Yeah.
everything. We
Yeah.
we see only differences, we emphasize only differences. When we see there's no value, and what doesn't produce anything within us has no value to us. That's kind of like the selfishness of being an ego in a
Hmm.
world. So when I can see that has no value, none of it, and I stop judging good from bad, my investment's gone. I'm only invested in it because I think it's valuable, that it impacts me, that it dictates my experience. It gives birth to happiness, fear, pain, guilt in me. And
Hmm.
so I think seeing there's no value is relinquishing all investment in the world.
Right. And then and when we're resting in God, we appreciate ourselves in an entirely different way. We're at home with ourselves. We're not self-hating. We like being what we're like, but we like being what we like because we're resting in reality. We have no aversion, hatred towards, we have no now desire to hate our brother because we haven't got the misery that drives us to want to hate the brother. We don't need to hate our brother anymore. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, there's a line in the course that says, "Let them be." If you understood it was an hallucination, meaning it's not cause,
Mhm.
it's an effect. Um, Let them be as hateful as they want. You wouldn't be judging anything that happened here. You wouldn't be seeing it as a cause. And so in that moment, you're resting in peace and you're experiencing the something else Jesus talks about in the course. So much of of our practice is looking at the blocks to it's looking at the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. When we have removed those blocks and been defenseless and looked upon things with non-judgment, looking, waiting quietly, doing nothing, we transcend it, we experience that peace of God reflected here.
Right. So
Where we are.
right. So what we're appreciating is ourselves as God made us. So we don't have to create that. That's always there. That has always been present. We just
Right.
haven't been cognizant of it. So the problem is cognition. It's not it's not what we've done or haven't done. It's ignorance itself, which is interesting because Socrates said that. It's not that people suffer from ignorance, not from badness.
Yeah, we just look at what we chose with open eyes. Reading the course is a perfect expression of what the ego thought system is and what it gave rise to. What we want to deny, we want to think that there's some really lovely aspects to things here. So I think that being able to see past um, rubies is blood, the diamonds are tears, and to see the existential and uh, crisis, an identity crisis we're having, which is our entire lives,
Mhm.
we can transcend it. And I think it does come back to there's no value in this. There's no value in the self I made. There's no value in the world I made. There's no value in the self I made.
Right, because what's I always found it interesting what the Buddha says. I teach only suffering and the resolution of suffering, and I see the course in the same way. It shows us what the suffering actually is. I mean, I would never have thought that the meaning of my suffering was simply that I believe that I'm separate and apart from God. I would never have thought that. I had other reasons for my suffering,
Yeah.
and the release of suffering uh, is that when we're rooted in the wisdom compassion, as the Buddhists would talk about, right? But when we're rooted in wisdom compassion or wisdom and love, uh, and we're partaking of that wisdom and love, then we are being the life and light that Jesus is. We're being the life and light that God is, and we're
Mm.
being the life and light that our brother is. And what's interesting about that is that I think when when people stick with a practical aspect of the course, which is we're only dealing with suffering, its meaning, in order to resolve it, to discover the release from it. We're only interested in those two things. We're not interested in metaphysics and theories and all of this sort of stuff because that doesn't help us. And the only way out is through.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, and the process that takes us from blaming the world, blaming ourselves, to understanding that we've never had a problem anyway, and that right where the problem is, there turns out to be only the presence of God.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you.